This is a complete guide on how to breed for mutations and how to stack mutations on your dinosaurs. Before we get into it, let's talk about important information you should know first. If you're playing on official or something similar, dinosaurs should never go past a level 450. Also keep in mind this includes the 88 levels that you can put into the dinosaur yourself as you level it up. If the dinosaur does go over level 450, the dinosaur will be deleted on the next server restart, so that's why you don't want to get it too high. Okay, so let's begin the guide. So first, we're going to tame a few high-level T-Rexes in the wild. You should get at least one male and one female while you're doing this. Generally, you want to get a lot of them to see what types of stats you can get from them. It's very important to not level up any of their stats after you tame these because it will confuse you and it doesn't transfer to the babies when you breed them. So these are the T-Rexes that I managed to get right here. So take note of their stats, especially the ones that you're most interested in. For T-Rexes, this would be health and melee damage. You should notice that all of these Rexes that you've tamed will have different stats from each other. So what you're going to try find is one with the highest health and one with the highest melee, and hopefully one is on female and one is on male. The pair I have here has the male with the best health and the best melee, and I have a female that also shares the same health value but does not have the same melee. So what we want to do is breed this male and this female to create a baby that eventually has both the highest health and the highest melee damage stat from each of the parents. In breeding, this is a 60% chance for the baby to get the higher stat from the parent with the highest stat. And this is usually why you try to tame as many Rexes, high-level Rexes as possible, because just because a Rex is high level doesn't mean it immediately has the highest damage. It could have the lowest damage and the highest stamina for some silly reason, or the highest food. So what we're aiming to do here is get a baby Rex in a male with the high health and the high melee damage, but also a female baby from the same pair that has also the high health and the high melee damage. So basically, we need a female and a male version with the exact same stats with the high stats. If you're playing on official, you do want to tame a low level Rex so that you can breed in some stats that you don't need so that you can get a lower T-Rex level so that you can make dinosaurs that have extremely high health and melee damage and other stats without going over level 450. So back to that baby pair that we have, the female and the male with both the high health and the high melee on each of them. This will be your breeding pair. You're going to breed these two over and over and over and over again because you want to have as many female babies as you can because you're going to add those females to the stock here to basically breed with the same male. So you're going to basically make a bunch of dinosaurs with the same stats here. The more females you can get, the better because we're going to be breeding one male, the same male that we already have, with all of the other like females that will have the same stats, the high health and the high melee, until we can eventually start mutating. What I typically like to do is breed about like 7 to like 10 females and then breed them over and over with the male. And then I stockpile as many female babies in cryopods or whatever you can to throw them out in a cluster around the male so that you can get all these babies which fit in a much smaller space around the male so that you can fit like almost 50 dinosaurs around the male, while saving space so that you can mate and breed them without having the issue of space and not being able to get your Rexes close enough to the male to actually breed with them. It is important that when you look at your females and your male that they do not have any existing mutations. You don't want any random mutations on either side. It should be 020, 020 in their ancestry that you can see from their stats menu. This is very important. Let me quickly explain what a mutation is before we start looking for them. A mutation has a 7.3% chance of occurring in a baby dinosaur. If you're lucky, you can even get a double or a triple mutation, but that goes into like less than 0% chance in one baby. A mutation will change the color spot of one of the regions of the dinosaur. It will also add two stats to a random stat which will make the stat better, such as health and melee damage, which we're trying to mutate for and make them give us more health and more melee damage on the base stats. Now you can breed the male with all of these females, and you will get a lot of babies from this, which will make things easier because you'll get a lot more chances to have mutations. You will only be looking at the male babies for mutations, never the females. This is very important. Look through all your new baby male T-Rexes and see if any of them have any new mutations. You will know if they're mutated if one of their like random mutator counts shows like 1 out of 20, or if one of their stats is higher than the parent stat that you started out with. So if the health was like 9,240, the new one with the new mutated thing might be 9,440, for example, like 200 extra on the base stat when it is like born. At this point, you will take the original male, the dad, the T-Rex dad, and you will replace him with the new baby T-Rex that has the new mutation in either health or melee damage. So you're going to keep replacing the dad. You will continue this process over and over. Every single time you mutate a baby, you will replace the dad. You will never touch the females. The females will always be the clean, unmutated ones. You will never have to get new females ever again. You start out with the females that you already have, so don't change them at all. But it should also be higher than the mutated father, which we already added into the pack. So we need basically higher stats than the father each time. We need a son that is better than the father all the time. And this will further increase the health or the melee damage stat to make the base even higher than the one we just got. I do recommend focusing on one stat at a time. So if you get a health mutation and you're focusing on health, try to get health mutations first until you're happy where your health is, until like you have like 40,000 base health on your T-Rex and you're like, okay, that's cool. Now just wait and I'll keep the 40,000 health and I'll start breeding melee damage mutations, but it also has to have the 40,000 health at the same time, if you see what I'm talking about. You got to wait until you have the health and the melee damage at the same time. Now, while you can't really track this on official, there are servers like Awesome Spyglass or something on like modded servers where you can see the amount of stats into a base stat of a dinosaur. An important thing you should know is that the base stat should never go over 254 points in the base stat. Now, this doesn't include the 88 levels that you can put into the dinosaur, but if the base stat goes over to 255 or more, you will not actually be able to place those 88 levels into that stat. You won't be able to add your own levels into the dinosaur to make their melee or their health a lot more higher. So you're basically kind of handicapping yourself massively. Now let's talk about the mutation counter. So every time you breed, you can get mutations on either the male or the female side, where you see it says maternal or patrilineal. Dude, I don't know how to say that word. It's weird. You'll see like a 0 out of 20 or 0 out of 20, or if you have mutations, it might be like 5 out of 20 and 1 out of 20 numbers. Now every time you breed the new male, it will move the mutations that you have from the female side over to the male side. So don't ever worry about the female side getting too full, because every single time you breed them with the clean females, the female counter will move on to the male counter on the baby. So you'll never have a male who will have more than 1 out of 20 from the female side. But what happens if you reach that 20 out of 20 on the male side? And trust me, you will reach it on the male side if you are breeding mutations. This is a completely normal thing. In fact, it actually goes higher than 20. You can have like 3,000 out of 20. Like it makes no sense that there's a 20 limit. But the way it actually works is once you reach 20 out of 20, the male will no longer be able to add stat mutations from its own side. And this will mean there is a 50% less chance to get mutations now, because the new mutations will have to land on the female side where the counter is less than 20, because all your mutations will now move over to the male side and it will go over 20 to like 21, 20, 22, 20, 23, 20, whereas the female side will always go 1, 20, 1, 20, because you're going to breed those mutations with the clean females from your male, and it will move it from the female side to the male side, as I've said previously. So the female side will never reach 20 out of 20. If it does, it means one of your females that you're breeding with already has mutations on it. And keep in mind, your females should never have mutations on them when you're breeding them for the mutated baby boys. And that's everything you need to know on how to breed and stack mutations on your dinosaurs. If you do have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. I do reply to every single one. I hope this helped, and thank you so much for watching.